Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
all right. So I think we're all back. I was also doing some things in the background there. Oh yeah, there we go. I think everyone's back now. So I know that's, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, however many weeks ago I had suggested, because we knew this was coming up, to get an account on Zoom, to maybe set up a conference with somebody else in the class or someone just to kind of try it out. And I know some people have done that leading up to now, but also just wanted to make sure now that we've had a chance to go through, see how to set up the rooms before you go into the room, get a little bit of experience about what it's like to be in the room themselves as a student, and also some of the things, the features that are available. So hopefully with this information, will you be able to join an app on their phones? If you want them to do something, if they can get to the class Moodle on their phone, then if you've got a link that you want them to go to, they could click on that link through their phone and it would open it there, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, it's basically it's an app for the site that I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
And it's free and it's easy, and if you join it, you can actually create your own account and that kind of thing. And I know you mentioned something before about creating your own account.
Yeah. In fact, that's basically what I have left to talk about tonight, is kind of some of the logistics
Okay.
of how all of this is going to work. So,
All right.
but before I get to that, does anybody have anything? Another thing that I've done in the Moodle, just so you know, and I think I had provided this before as well, but I figured I'd put it here too, is I put up a page here that is direct links to the Zoom Help Center, to the client download page if you haven't done that already, and also to their FAQ page. So they actually, at least from what I've seen and gone through, their support center is actually really nicely laid out and very supportive. They have video tutorials for just about everything that you would do in Zoom. And they're organized nicely, sort of based on what activity you're trying to do and what platform you're on. So if there's a particular feature that maybe you want a little bit more information on or a little bit more practice with, you can also always go to that help center as another resource too, because I know I certainly wasn't able to get through everything that Zoom does. But that's another thing that I posted up here, is to get you to those tutorials directly. So beyond that, any questions that I can answer right now about the use of Zoom itself, not specifically about the presentation, but maybe just about the Zoom, the use of the Zoom software? We're good. All right, so let's talk about the presentations then. So the way, and I'm kind of modeling this off of how they did it in the past, and I think it'll work. It's a little clunky, as we've been saying, just because some of your content people may have to access from the Moodle, but you also want to have them there with you on Zoom. You'll just have to figure out how to kind of balance those two things. But what I've created is a wiki on our class Zoom. And once we know who's going when, I'm going to create a page under each of the time slots for whoever's going during that time slot. And that page will then be available for you to provide whatever your students are going to need for your class, for your presentation. I will already put in some headings of things that you need to put in there. One of them will be the URL for your classroom. So the first thing that will happen, say next week at 5 o'clock, is that rather than us all logging into WebEx, we will log into the Moodle, see whoever's at 5 o'clock next week, open up their wiki page, and there will be a link there that will take you to their classroom. So that's one piece of information that's going to have to be there, is your URL, so we know how to get to your classroom. Beyond that, anything else that your students need to access either before or during the class. So let me pull those apart. So before the class, if you want your students to sign up on a website, if they need an account in order to do something that you want them to do during your class, then you'll want to put in instructions on your wiki page saying, prior to the class, please go to this website and sign up for a free account. Or please, before class, go to this link and watch this introductory video. Or whatever, if there's anything that you need the students to look at before the class begins. So that'll be one set of information. Now, you may not have anything. You may just start your class off, and everything that they need, they can do right there while the class is happening. But if there's anything that you need your students to do ahead of time, try to keep that manageable, because realize that on a given night, we may be going to 5 different classes. So I don't want us to have to be watching 7 hours worth of preliminary videos and so on before class meets next Tuesday. But if there's something that they need to view, or like I said, probably most likely would be if there's an account that they need to set up, a free account in whatever app you're going to demonstrate. And then the other piece would be anything that they need during the class. So like people were just asking about, if they need to go to a particular website during the class, and then you would put the link to it there. If there's somebody mentioned doing a Google form or something like that to get feedback, you would put the link there. So we'll use your page on the wiki as the container for all of the materials aside from what you're going to do in the Zoom presentation, so that there's one place that students can go to and click on and link to anything else that they will need. So like I said, what I will do is create the pages, and I will pre-put some headers in there just to kind of guide you in terms of what information should go onto your page. But then you will fill in whatever information needs to be there. What I would ask is, say you're presenting next week. So if you're presenting next Tuesday, which we will decide in just a little bit here, that you have all of your links up by the end of Sunday at the latest, so that during Monday and Tuesday, the rest of the class can look through the pages and see if there's anything they need to prep for. And I will send out a remind as well on a Sunday evening, reminding people, please check the wiki pages for Tuesday's presentations to make sure that anything you need to do prior to the presentation you've done. So it'll be important for that information to be up there at least a couple days before the presentations. All right, so that's what's going to happen on the Moodle, is that you will have a page that you can then go in and edit and add links and add content and add instructions. And then that will be where the students will go to know how to get to your room and to access any things that they will need during your presentation. All right, questions about that?
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So for next week, technically we have 3 homework assignments. 1, we have to check everybody's individual wiki page who's presenting to make sure our prep work, if they require it, is done. Mm-hmm. 2, we're working on our own presentation. And 3, we also have to do a blog.
So yeah, I'll mention the blog as well. Yeah, it's a little more spread out than that, because, for example, if you're not presenting until the week following, then that takes obviously the pressure off needing to have your presentation ready by next week, right? Does that make sense? So of the three things you just mentioned, if you're not presenting on the 23rd, yes, you might be working on your presentation over the next week, but you then also still have the following week to work on it. If you are presenting next week, the blog is not going to be required of you by next week. I'm trying to set it up so that of the three things, any given person doesn't have to produce all three of those things in the same week, if that makes sense. I don't know if that made things more confusing or less.
No, I understand what you're saying. I was reading the homework while you were speaking, and it just said that our blog was basically about the Moodle. It's a reflection about the Moodle that we just completed.
Correct.
So there was no due date on it. So, I mean, if it's not due, if we have, if it's like a push due date until, maybe when the presentations are done, I don't know. I was just...
Right. And that was basically part of my idea. And I was going to go over that when I got to the homework bit of it. But yeah, I don't want to have... I'm not trying to overload. So I am trying to... I think I'm just not explaining myself very well right now in terms of all this. But yes, the first piece is correct. That if you are not presenting next week, then part of your homework will be just to check in on the people who are presenting and see if there's anything you need to do. Now, hopefully, for some presenters, that may be nothing. And at most, for other presenters, it may mean you just have to sign up for an account for something or look at a quick video. So do keep that in mind when you're creating your presentations, is that these are 20, 25-minute presentations. So don't expect your students to be watching 3 hours of introductory videos before your presentation. Like, try to keep the scope of the prep work controlled, if that's helpful. Yeah, Erica.
How much should we be expecting everyone else to do? Like, how much independent work should be required? Or does it have to be?
It's more... It's not so much about independent work, I guess. I'm trying to remember how exactly I phrased it, but it's... What I'm trying to avoid is having... I don't want your 20 to 25 minutes to be simply you talking and showing something on a screen, So it shouldn't just be you walking through a website and just explaining to everybody what goes on in the website. So at some point, however works best for what you're presenting, I just want to get something in there that is a little more interactive. It could be informal, where you're just asking for feedback and getting some chat going. It could be breaking people up and having them quickly go look at something and then come back and share what they found. But it's a pretty short period of time, so it's not going to be that involved. I want the presentations from an instructional standpoint to not just be the sage on the stage type of thing.
Okay, I was just getting concerned because I'm doing Google Earth, and that often kind of crashes your computer. So I wanted to make sure I could do something that wasn't just...
Yeah, no, it could...
required to do that.
Right, it could simply be, again, I don't want to tell you what you're going to teach, but you could simply throw people into 4 breakout rooms and say, brainstorm 3 quick ways that you could use Google Earth in your own classroom.
Okay, perfect.
Go away for 5 minutes, come back, and just in a chat share out what you came up with. So I just one of the continuing issues with online instruction, and especially synchronous, and I've experienced this at the commercial end and the commercial end of things a lot, is that it literally just becomes somebody sitting there talking at you through a computer for hours on end. And that's just not good instruction. So I'm trying within the scope of this rather small project to at least get some piece of that so that you're thinking about how to use web conferencing technology as a as a two-way street as opposed to just a one-way street.
So Professor Miller, then, like when we're submitting our video, so like say you want to have the students visit the site and do something on the site themselves, on the video there's going to be dead time.
That's fine.
You know what I mean? And that's okay?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, even in our WebEx classes, that's why it's usually broken up into multiple videos, because I'll send you guys off to work on something and I turn the video off because we don't need video at that point, or I'll edit those chunks out because you don't need those chunks. So yeah, the video will capture whenever you're directly interacting, but there will be times where the video doesn't capture anything. So, all right. So let's, I think the big thing, and I honestly am just not quite sure how this will go, but we'll just see, is to figure out the schedule. Now, what I did do is that next week there's a possibility of up to 5 people. Oh, people are already putting their names in. I hadn't expected that part. That's okay. The following week there's 5 slots, and there is the potential of up to 4 on that last week. I'd rather not load up that last week, especially if we're going to be combining. And actually, I should change this date now to the 8th. If we're going to be combining 5:20 and 5:30, I don't want to use the whole night for presentations, but if we need to, we've got some time slots there. So we actually have 14 slots available to cover 12 people. So we do have more slots available than we actually need. So let's see. Brian just said they're willing to go first. There's always somebody who likes to step up and just get it out of the way. So that's good. Anybody else who would like to add themselves into next week and get it done? Maybe just throw something in the chat window if you're willing to be one of those people. Anyone? Jimmy, all right. Oops. Okay, so let's see here. We'll put Jimmy in next. And then let's see, Kathleen and Erica. All right, awesome. And do we have one more taker for next week? Going once, going 1.5. All right, we'll see if we can make this work. So then the following week, oh, Sandy. Okay, thank you, Sandy. All right, cool. So that week is that gets 5 out of the way. So then the following week, we've already got Melissa, Tommy, and Kayla here. Are there 2 other people who would be willing to fill in in that second week time slot? Second week, 7 o'clock for Brian. All right. Anyone else want to start us off on that second week? One more? Anyone? Anyone? Come on, we can do it. I know we've got one person not here tonight, so I don't want to throw them under the bus. Who are we still waiting for? Let's see. Either Yamilka, who else? Trying to see who else we're missing. Hang on a second. Let me grab my class list here and see who we're missing. So I'm going to put, she's not here tonight, so I'm going to put, Felicia on the last week, although if I check with her, she might go earlier. Let's see, we've got Kayla, we've got Erica, we've got Melissa. Oh, Tanisha, we're also missing. Jimmy. Don't want to go first. Okay. Is there anybody else in the 30th group that would be willing to just swap out and go at the 5 o'clock time slot, and we can fit Yamilka in? Okay, so Melissa, we'll move you to here. And Yamilka, we'll put you there. All right, good. Then I think that's just Felicia, and then I think the only other person we're missing is Tanisha. So I'll throw her on the last week as well, since she's not here right now. All right, so yeah, so that gives us a schedule, so you know kind of what your target is. And what I will do right now, this is just a text list, but what I will do either later tonight or first thing tomorrow is turn all of these into pages. So they'll become clickable, and then once they're pages, you'll be able to go in and start filling in the information. So especially for the group going next week, I really appreciate that. I know what it's like to be one of the first people to go through something like this. A week from yesterday, I'm going to be the first person presenting their major paper presentation in my music ed class. And I don't know what made me say, yes, I'll go on the first day, but I said it anyway. But I guess I get it out of the way, and then I get to move on from there. But so when you come back to this wiki, by tomorrow, these should all be linkable pages. And like I said, I'll put information on them in terms of what specific information should go in there. And you can just start adding in what you need to add in. Yes, Sandy.
Say we wanted to practice this and there was nobody around. Could we record it and see what it comes out like?
Yeah, if you here's one other trick to just throw out there in general, and it's something I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we've had a mystery student in the class the whole semester whose name is Dave. Dave,
I noticed that.
Dave is actually me on a second computer. And this is one trick that I found useful if you have the ability to do it. Now, it may not technically work for you, but if you have, a laptop and a desktop computer or something like that, I found it really useful for me to join the class that I'm teaching as a student on a second machine, because then you really get to keep an eye on what your students are seeing. So if something blanks out, if you're not sharing the right screen, you can actually see what your students are seeing at the same time. So if you wanted to do that, idea. if you do what you were saying, you can absolutely do that, and Zoom will make the recording. You will just be seeing what you were seeing on your screen, if that makes sense. If you want to see what your students would be seeing, if you've got the option of setting up a second computer, then just don't log in on that second computer as you, just join the room as a random person, and then you'll have the ability to see both sides of the equation at the same time.
Nice. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, yes, that's right. It's also Easter weekend. So thank you. Yes, thank you to everyone who stepped up for the first week. It is much appreciated. All right, so this will become linkable. So let's finish up. Let me get out of here. Oh, don't do that. Nope. Oh, right, I have to save this because I was actually editing. There we go. Okay.
Professor Miller, we can Zoom on our phones, right?
You can do Zoom on your phones. I don't know
if it'll record, though, huh?
I don't know if the recording will work, and I also don't know if all of the features will show up on the mobile in terms of like the thumbs up and thumbs down and things like that. I haven't tested it myself.
Okay. I thought that maybe if you didn't have two computers, then you could get on your phone on one. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you could probably, at least to see roughly what's seeing. I mean, it's obviously going to be on a pretty small screen, but yeah, that might be an option too. So, all right. So there you go. Yeah. If you've got a guinea pig, if you know someone else in the class, you could do a little test with each other. So the only other thing I put under class materials for this week was just I relinked to the presentation requirements. just in case. That was also on an earlier week, but I put a new link here just so you can go back over those. So in terms of the actual homework, to bring us back to this. So here is what I was trying to explain earlier maybe and didn't do a great job of. So thing number one, if you are scheduled to present next week, so if you're one of the Fearless Five, then obviously your main thing this week is to get your presentations prepared. So
the gyoza are done, dumplings are done.
Sorry, that was an announcement for my house. So your main thing this coming week is to prepare those presentations. So that should be your main focus. The provided wiki page, that's what I was just talking about. I'll have those set up for you by tomorrow so that you can be putting your URL in there, any links you need to the resource that you're presenting, any other materials, etc., etc., etc. As I said, please, especially if there's things people need to do before your presentation, have that complete by Sunday night. And what I will do at that point is send out a remind to the whole class, just to remind everybody to check in between Sunday and Tuesday to see if there's anything you need to get set up. I didn't really put that as separate homework. I guess I should add that in here as part of the homework. If you're not presenting next week, then one piece will be to check in on the 5 to see what you need to present. But again, as a favor to the class, for those of you presenting, try to keep any pre-class prep to something that is relatively quick and easy to do. It should not be about reading full chapters and things like that. Just if they need to sign up for an account or do something quick so that we have that piece. If you are not scheduled for week 13, for next week, then certainly, be working on your presentations. I'm not telling you not to work on them, but over the course of the final 3 weeks, I do want to get one more blog post in about reflecting on your Moodle experience. So that's not a forum, that's back on your Wix page as a final blog post. So if you're not focused completely on your presentation this week, then you can start to create a blog post that talks about what challenges you faced with the Moodle, what did you learn in terms of teaching online through a platform like Moodle? Do you see yourself using technology like this in the future? What sorts of benefits or drawbacks have you now become aware of doing asynchronous online instruction? So on. So basically just a way to, now that the Moodles are basically done, just to kind of reflect on the whole experience and see what your takeaways are from, developing and delivering asynchronous online instruction. All right. So, I guess the blog itself is not due next week. I'm just trying to kind of, keystone together prepping for your presentation and getting the blog done. So I was trying to phrase this in a way so that if you're scheduled for next week, don't worry about the blog for next week. Focus on your presentation. If you're not presenting next week, then get at least some, if not all, of the work done on that blog post, so that then you can spend the week prior to your presentation really focusing on the presentation. So they're kind of, they'll work against each other. Whatever weeks over the next 2-3 weeks you are not presenting, use that to work on the blog. But obviously then whichever week is your presentation week, that should be your main focus that week. All right. Is that a little clearer in terms of the questions from earlier about the homework? So, I guess essentially what I should say is that the blog post technically is not going to be expected to be done from everybody until that final week. So you'll have, over the course of our final 3 weeks, basically 2 weeks you're not presenting where you can work on the blog, and 1 week where you are presenting where obviously your presentation is going to be your main focus. And then for every non-presenter each week, you will have probably a little bit of prep work to do to be prepared to join other people's classes. Okay, so to recap tonight, because I feel like we covered a lot of stuff tonight from a lot of different angles. So schedule next week. Don't sign on to WebEx. At 5 o'clock, you will, or a little before 5 o'clock, you will go to the Moodle. You'll look up our first presenter's URL for their Zoom room, and we should try to be on time. So right at 5 o'clock, we will start the first Zoom presentation. That should last 20 to 25 minutes. There will be a 5 to 10 minute block in between the presentation. There will be a quick little feedback thing for people to do. And then we will move on to the next person's room and just rinse and repeat. So we'll go through the 5 presentations next week. Following week will basically be a carbon copy, just with 5 different people. Excuse me. And then the final week, it sounds like what we will plan on doing is, rather than meeting Tuesday on campus, we will meet Wednesday on campus. We will squish the 5:30 and the 5:20 classes together. So Erica, you and Felicia will be there for part of that time. You will probably not need to stay the whole time, because there are some things I'll have to do with the 5:20 class that won't apply to you, but I'll stagger those so that you don't have to stay the whole time. We'll do the final 2 presentations on campus on that final Wednesday. We'll do final course evaluations and reflections and things like that. And that will be that. All right. So any final questions for this evening? All right. Well, I thank you all for being here tonight. If you have questions, especially for those of you presenting next week, if anything comes up over the week, please be in touch with me. I'm going to post, there will be 3 videos from tonight's class. The video from tonight's class that's about Zoom, you will actually see my end of things. So that might be worth watching, because you will actually see my screen when I was doing the various Zoom pieces. So that might be useful too. But if not, we will see each other in a Zoom room a week from tonight at 5 o'clock. Oh, and the other thing is, don't forget, if you still need a little time on your Moodle, send me a quick message just so I know to not start looking at your Moodle right away, just to give you a little extra time. Okay. So, I think that's it for this evening. So I will see everybody in a week in a Zoom room. All right. Thank you. I will stay here if people have questions.